Hi, everyone, and all. Father has instructed me uh, yesterday, I believe, or the day before, uh, to share my story once again, and it's about what the events that surrounded my ascension on earth out of being human into the divine Rick. So, with this, I am going to share the story of what occurred on that most glorious day, if you will. So, where I'll begin is let me say this physical vessel now is, I think, 60 years old. Um, but everything began when I became uh, divine. It began when I was about 47, 49 years old. So, having said this, for 47 years of my life, if you will, on Earth, I was human. And of course, I drank alcohol and, did many things. And not bad things, but, things that you don't do when you're divine, when you know more of the truth. And, it was all part of my lessons and my knowing and also my divine development. I needed to have the experiences in those 47 years to know uh, about them and the better things, to do for when I became divine. But unbeknownst to I, in those 47 years, I did not know who I was, if you will. And one of the jokes from Father is that I was disguised so good that I didn't even know who I was myself until that most glorious day when the events occurred and I had ascended into my divinity and to who I am. So just prior to that most glorious day, if you will, I had to go through what you would call a dark night of the soul or a dissension period. And what that involved is, to keep it simple, unbeknownst to I, before that day that I had ascended, perhaps 12, 13 years ago, um, unbeknownst to I, the 2 years prior to that, I was going through an awakening process, at evaluating things in the world, but also going into depth of the actual financial system upon the planet. And I didn't know why, but the deeper I went into it, then I become learned in all of its deception and what it was, to keep it simple. So when I found this out, I was in an investment group, and because it dealt with investments in the stock markets and all of these. And by the way, with that, everything in the stock market, at any time if there is a crash, it's all orchestrated by the darkness herself to cream off the excess and put ones down in more of a state of control. And the market crashes are orchestrated because uh, the manipulators, the banks, and what have you, the main controllers of the markets, they're able to what they call short stocks. And this shorting is a method that allows them to control the markets up and down to keep a profit. So they actually manipulate the markets and short the stocks while they take the cream because they're making money, incredible amounts of money off of the market as it crashes because they all take up short positions. This is one of the reasons they use the analogy that the banks truly are too big to fail, because that is the truth. And with the creation of money and the manipulation of markets, as long as there is the unfairness in it, uh, it is controlled to that effect. But in the new world where we're going, there's no financial markets whatsoever. The financial markets are part of the old draconian Orion monetary matrix system. We are going into the freedom of that and the full release, emancipation of humanity into their own full abundance and freedom, of course. But without getting into that, I got to get back to the story. So when I was awakening, I was finding all of the information and I was putting it out publicly online. Then I came under attack. So what part of the information and also the investigation of my investments I was into, we began to uncover fraudulent things and very serious violations of the markets, if you will. So, a group of us, when we brought it to the attention of the authorities like the SEC, the Securities Commissions of Canada, Europe, and even the police, if you will, in Canada. I was in Canada. What had occurred, which was very weird and odd, is that instead of the authorities taking action on the incontestable evidence that we had of a huge fraud, we come under surveillance. They ignored all of the evidence and they put us under surveillance. And it made it look like we were the criminals, if you will, when no, we were the ones that were losing a lot of money and we could see all the corruption in it. So we reached out to the authorities for assistance. And it was a flip. Instead of them assisting us, they put us under investigation and surveillance. And so, with that, with I knowing the injustice as a human that was done, where so many were being robbed of their investment, their life savings, I included with this. Uh, so, where it was, again, it was blatantly wrong, a total injustice, uh, I could not sit and take it. I had invested. Uh, I had a considerable wealth, and I had it invested in the markets, and with sophisticated investment techniques and tactics, and of course with great prudence and doing all of the due diligence involved in investing. The investments, what I had was to be, if it would have been an uncorrupt world, my investments would have been very good and I would have been very rich. However, what occurred is that's not how it works, and that there is the control with the investments and the corruption. So I could not let it rest. I had said that. Uh, I had considerable wealth, and what I had intended to do with it from the human perspective, because I wasn't divine yet then, was to get a good nest egg investment with a lot of money. I did years of background and research on how to identify good investments and all of this. And, what I wanted to do was build houses for my children, put them in a place of security, as well as myself. And so that was all jeopardized and taken away. And, when we reached out for to get assistance from the authority and we became the accused, it was just so ridiculous. So, with that, all during that time and for 47 years, I didn't really believe in God. And this is important. I knew there was something else, but I could never say it was God. However, just before my ascension, and let's say the 3 days of 3 dark nights of the soul and the dissension, I came under attack by not only the Canadian CSI and the FBI and even the military was involved, and I was in a huge car chase in the city of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and I was attempting to get out to Alberta West to meet with a lot more of the investors so that we could come up with a plan to expose, this corruption and the injustice where a lot of our life savings was taken from us. But also, during the course of discovering what had occurred with us, we also saw there were many, many others uh, that were in similar investments that had been robbed of millions and millions over the years. So we were getting ready to make a huge stand, and what occurred is I came under attack with a car chase. And to keep that simple, there was perhaps 200 unmarked vehicles involved in it at some point, at least 75, with all crew cut, short hair personnel driving these vehicles. So it was blatant. They were part of the military, if you will, and all in attempting to uh, blocked me from going and uniting with the other investors in Alberta, and they pushed me back to my hometown. They also, and I have proof of what I'm about to say. They also had my radio in the car compromised, and they would keep turning it on and saying things to I. And the proof of this is what was my daughter's uh, mother, or my daughter's father of her children. He can openly testify that when we took the car in later, he took the car in, and they had wires that was soldered on the inside of the door to the computer and to the radio, so that they use the radio as a transmitter. So what I'm saying is that it was not insanity. It's the real truth, and there are witnesses to that effect. But getting to the story, what occurred is I had just found out the entire world was unjust, and everything I had worked for all of my life was at stake or almost gone as a result of what you would call illegal activity, and the authorities would do nothing about it and instead come and attack I and others. I said, this is not making sense. So, what I did, I had to surrender when I was under attack with the car chases, and I had to give up and go back to my home. I did put up a very good fight because I had no fear at trying to outpace them, doing what you would call James Bond maneuvers, and they even said that on the radio. One of their statements said, "Who do you think you are? 00, what is it, 007, James Bond or something?" Because I was going through alleys and shaking them all off. But the more I tried to shake them off, the more vehicles they brought in and blocked all access. So I knew it was senseless to continue to try to get through their car blockades to get to Alberta. So, and I was very tired because I was under a lot of stress for 3 days fighting the authorities, if you will. And so, nevertheless, so I go back home and I surrender. And feeling and witnessing and knowing the huge injustice that was just not only perpetrated upon I, but the rest of the investors. In your heart, it's not right. So with I needed to get away to clear my head, and I was a prospector at that time as well. And in Nova Scotia, there's many forests and places you can go where you're, 50 kilometers or even 50, 100 miles away from any internet or anyone else. You can go in the forests, in the back roads where they were logging. And this is where I would go to um, spend time in nature, in alone, in the forest, and looking for minerals and you know mineral deposits that also could be very make I be very wealthy, if you will. So, having said that, um, I would spend a lot of time in the forest alone, and so I just went through this great traumatic ordeal and confusion and what was insanity with the outside world. I kept questioning my sanity, but every time I did it, no, it's real. I would test it in many different ways, and as soon as I tested it, I would come under attack, if you will, once again, showing that it was very real what I was experiencing. So I was at what you would call in a human life at the end of my rope. I just found out the entire world was corrupt and that something was very wrong when the authorities began to attack I. So with that, I said, all right, there's nothing. I can't live in this kind of a world. I have children, I have grandchildren, everything I worked for is at stake. And I said, there's something wrong. This is not right. How can this be? And I said, I cannot live in this kind of a world. However, I have my moral duty and obligation to my family and my grandchildren to do the best I can. And with that, one of the thing is I had enough consciousness and enough sense to not be violent and do anything foolish, because that would not end it. The corruption in the world, what I had witnessed, was prevalent throughout Canada, U.S., Europe at least, but all over. So, I looked at it. I said, this is it's so weird. And I was at the end of my rope. So I decided to go back into the forest where I would prospect for minerals. It was a 40-minute drive from my home into the forest where I would go. And the area where I was going this particular day to get away from the dark night of the soul, all of the trauma, and just to get alone in nature was my intentions to rationalize what had occurred and to look at what options I had as one individual against the mass corruption in the world. I had my moral duty and obligation to my family to at least fight for them because this was wrong. So I wanted clarity, and so I decided to go uh, go for a drive in nature to be alone and put my focus on looking for minerals, if you will, take it off of the traumatic experience so I could begin to rationalize and look to see if there was any solutions. So I wanted to be alone to think. So what occurred is that I checked the weather forecast. It was supposed to be a sunny day, no clouds in the sky. And so it was sunny, supposed to be sunny for all of Nova Scotia. What was interesting as I began to drive, if you will, uh, perhaps let's say I'm guessing maybe 15 minutes into my 40-minute drive to go to where I was going, the sky became all overcast. And, I noted it. I said, that's odd because we're supposed to have all sun. But also, I, being a commercial fishing captain in the past, always looked at weather meteorology and studied it, but also witnessed times when the weatherman, if you will, could be absolutely wrong. So it was no real big thing. But I did take note of it, and I said, well, the weatherman made a mistake today. Here it is all overcast with low clouds. But I said, as a prospector, that makes it very good for prospecting. Because when the sun is out, when you're prospecting, it puts a glare of light on the ground, and you can't see minerals and patterns in rocks and crystals as easy. So when you're prospecting, it is good to go on a damp day, even with a light rain, because then the minerals highlight out. You can see them much easier. So I loved that, and I said, "Oh, all right." I said, "This will be optimal. A little mist as well." I said, "Just put a dampness on the rocks, then I can cover more area prospecting." So about 20 minutes into the 40-minute drive in my truck driving along, and my companion, the dog Bud, was with me. He loved going into the forest as well. So he was my companion with doing that. So, in my thoughts constantly was looking for the solution on what I was going to do with this huge injustice I and others had discovered. How were we ever going to do anything, with this? So, uh, let me also say that around the dark night of the soul, and that occurred for I, perhaps intense for about more than 3 days, you would say a week, what I had seen is from time to time, like miraculously, I was given information to support I in, uh, let's say, putting more evidence out towards the government and the markets. So I was always given very good things, and also I began to recognize that something was supporting me, something abstract, something spiritual at least, and I didn't believe in angels or God then again, but I did recognize that there was some abstract, unseen force that was assisting I in many ways. So I was, let's say, atheist at that time, not knowing or believing if God was real or not, somewhere in between. So having said that, I was at what you would call the end of my rope, could not see any solution on how this world could be so corrupt, if you will, and at getting no assistance with um, eradicating the corruption. So it was just absolutely odd. And so with that, I recognized that there was some sort of a force that was assisting I, because I always stayed sane and rational and always observed everything. I was in my human life, I was always like that. Evaluate, consider everything into the equation with your discernment and your evaluation. So I saw that, and I knew it was beneficial, the abstract assistance, but I didn't know where it was coming from. And so 20 minutes into my drive, I had come to, the rational conclusion, all right, perhaps these abstract forces was angels assisting me, and perhaps God is real. And 20 minutes into the drive, I come to the conclusion. I was driving along, I looked out my window up at the sky, and I said, all right, God, if you're real, I really need you now. I need your assistance. I said, because I don't know what to do. And a little bit emotional when I go back to that time. So I said I recognize that something is trying to assist me. I said I think it's you, God, but I said I don't know if you're real. And I said, if you are, I'm about your worst skeptic, because I am logical, scientific, and I really need to see some miracles. So I said, all right, I was still the big boy, thinking that I was the God, as each one's think the God is within you, and that you are the creator of your reality. So, with that comes that spiritual ego that you are the God, that there is no external super conscious entity known as God. So you're in that ego restrictive state that keeps yourself disconnected from the Godhead, from Source, from God. So, it's still a pretty good state of, with embodying your moral concepts and your values when you believe you're God, because then you'll act more godlike, which is a good thing, and it's the beginning of more of being connected to your divinity and knowing God as well. Because, again, this world we're in here is not the God world yet. It is actually, right now, you could call it purgatory, and hell as well. It depends upon the individual where they're at in their consciousness, in their divine development. But, so going back to this, I look up and I said, all right, God, if you're real, I said, I'm about your worst skeptic. And I said, you either got to speak to me or at least show me something impossible that I know you did it. I said, because if you're real, I really need you now. So I was driving along. So I said this, driving along 20 minutes. I waited a couple minutes. Nothing happened. Nothing changed because I didn't believe as well, right? So nothing changed. So I just kept driving and I said, oh, all right. So I guess God is not real. And because I expected something to happen instantly. So I said, all right, God's not real. So I said, I'll take my thoughts off of everything, that occurred. So I drive another 20 minutes to get to the locations where I was going to prospect, and put my focus on prospecting, so I don't, I give my mind and my consciousness a break in the least. So what occurs, I get to my first place where I'm going to stop. So it was a 40-minute drive, and I see a nice piece of white milky quartz on the side of the road that I had not noticed before in that area. I had areas with claims where I would prospect on, and so I got out to look at it. It was embedded in the ground a bit, so I carried a short pick about this long, a little miner's pick with a long metal on both sides, and a short handle, and a good little pick, because you're prospecting. So I got out and I dug the quartz specimen out, if you will, and said, all right, I'll take it home and look like some mineral content in it. And I had a microscope and things, and I said I'll examine it, because it does have pathfinder minerals in it, if you will, that maybe gold is what I was looking for. But not only gold, other precious metals, platinum, silver, and all of these. Uh, so with that, I put it in my truck, and my pick, I either lay my pick back on the back of my truck for a minute, or I put my pick down in the truck box where I always put it, right behind the driver's seat. So I always know where it's at when I'm driving along. If I stop, if I need my pick to get out to sample something, I just reach into the truck box and bring it out, off I go. So I drive a little bit further, about a kilometer in the road, and I see a quartz vein that I didn't see before in a rock. So I stop there, and I get out, and I see that there is a glass, like it's a very hot fluid that had cooled very quickly with glass. So this was a very good indicator for diamonds, if you will. So I get out of the vehicle, and I went to grab my pick, and it's not in the back of the truck where I normally put it. And I look inside the truck, I cannot find my pick. And so I just say, I have the assumption that, all right, maybe I left it back right where I got the other rock, a kilometer away. So what I did is I picked up the crystal. There was a crystal that was, I didn't know until later, that was divinely planted there for me, and I picked that up at that location. So I needed my pick. So I said I'll just drive back out the road and pick up my pick. It must be at the last location, and that was all a flat gravel place that I drove back out to that area, and I didn't see my pick laying there. I said, well, this is odd. So what I did is I said, perhaps I laid my pick on the back of the truck and I didn't put it right in the box. And when I was driving in the old road, that maybe it fell off. So I said, I'll drive back in the road, and it would be laying right on the side of the road. So I'll just go right slow, and it has to be on the driver's side because I did not go to the passenger side anytime I had the pick. So I said it'd be easy to find. It's here. It cannot vanish or whatever. So I drive in the road. I do not see the pick. I said this is odd. So I drive back out the road. I do a more inclusive search everywhere where I had stepped, and everywhere I was at, I did not see it. It was nowhere to be seen. So then I said, it's got to be on the road. I'll drive back in again and watch the side of the road slowly. I drove back in again, did not see it. I said, something is very, very wrong. so I said, I'll park my truck. I'll walk the road into the ditch very thoroughly and look every part of the road. So I did that, and I could not find the pick. So what occurred is I drove back out the road, researched again over the area I searched, and then I just had a feeling to drive back in the road. So I began to just drive back in the road, but not really looking for the pick. And I just happened to glance down as I'm driving in, and here is my pick laying flat out on the grass, so easy that it's no way I could have missed it. You could see it. So I need to say with that, I said this is cool and very odd because I know the pick wasn't there. So my pick had vanished, but I did not put the pick together with what I asked if God was real. I did not make that association at that time. I passed it off because my consciousness and mind was still in a scientific or phenomenal explanation, but nevertheless noted that something impossible had occurred. But also with my life of 47 years, there were phenomenal things that occurred with I because I also was gifted, but I never attributed nor associated God with my gifts. So, I'd witnessed in the past, perhaps, not something as miraculous as that, but um, some things that were close. So I said, all right, I looked at the time, I said, I want to go to another location, but it's a 40-minute walk in the woods after I get out of my truck. And I watch the time of day to make sure I have enough time because it would mean to walk in 40 minutes into the forest deep, and it would also mean walking out 40 minutes and also to give time while I was in the certain area of the forest. And it was by a stream of water, a small river that I wanted to go to check out, to look for any quartz veins going across the river and look to see if there was, and if it had mineral content that I could pan for gold perhaps later. So I was scouting this area out. Now, what occurred when I went in, my comrade, the dog, he was getting old. He was a golden Nova Scotia duck-toller golden lab, and his back legs were very weak because he was getting up in age. And any little we went across a couple streams like about this wide that were deep, but he could not jump because he didn't have enough strength in his legs, and this is important. So I would carry him across the places where he could not jump or could not go himself. Um, so I would do that, and he's good walking just flat, but not uphill or able to jump. He had enough strength in his legs to come along with me walking flat. So what occurred? Uh, we arrived at the small river, the small stream, and there was an outcropping of rock where I had arrived that I could see there was some quartz veining on it on the other side of the river. So I said, wow, this is a good place to begin to look. So what I did is I went across the river. It wasn't that deep, maybe maybe knee high, but I carried my comrade across it um, as well. So we got to the other side, and there was a narrow ridge that I had to walk out on to this outcropping that was about 5 feet, 4 feet high, but it had a narrow ledge on it about this wide, and I had to walk out about 8 to 10 feet on this ledge because it was water all around it to uh, tap and get some samples from the top of the rock. So uh, in the area I was in, it was all water from the river, and the back was a steep bank straight up. And then I had in front of me the the outcropping. So my companion, the dog, he was waiting right at the edge of the ledge. He could not come out because it was so narrow, he wouldn't get turned around. However, I'm out on the ledge and I'm getting ready to take some samples, and he does walk out. And I looked down and I said, Bud, why did you walk out on this narrow ledge? Because he was intelligent. I said, why would you do that? You can't get turned around. And I said, you know, it's water here. You would fall in the water. I said, well, just wait a minute. And I said, I'm going to get this sample because it was gold and a little bit of it had lit up. I knew it was gold in the sample, so I wanted to get a little piece to take it out and inspect the purity of it and everything else. So I reached up to get a sample. I got a sample. It only took like this quick, and I looked down to where my companion, the dog, was. I looked down to figure out how I was going to get him out of there without I needing to go back in the water. The pool was a little bit deeper there. But when I looked down, he's gone. He is not there. And there's a huge bank very close that he couldn't go up over, and I didn't hear him go. and he's not in the water, so he has vanished. So I'm very bewildered. What happened? I look all around. I don't see him. I go out in the river. I can see about 150 meters downstream and 150 meters upstream. I can see the sides of the banks. I don't see him anywhere. And the first thing I said, this is impossible. So I call his name for about a minute. I do not hear him. I do not see him. And then I'm standing in the river calling his name, and to my surprise, about 150 yards, meters down the river on my left side, I see him come running with his ears flapping and right happy about 150 or 150 meters away, and he's all healthy and all good, and he could not, as I said, he could just barely walk, but here he is, very happy, very healthy, running. But the thing is, it's impossible for human logic for him to get from beside me way far away that quick, and he could not go up over the bank. So I said, wow, this is absolutely miraculous. So then my consciousness and my thoughts go toward, uh, all right, I believed in dimensional portals and what have you. So I said, all right, there has to be a dimensional portal here. But for it to change my comrade the dog from being barely able to walk to now running, this is a very interesting, important portal. And I look around, I'm still in the same reality. So I'm very amazed. I'm very happy. My comrade, he comes back, the dog. So I got my sample and I decided to. It was getting late, still very overcast. So I said we must begin to walk out before it gets dark. So I began to walk out. I and my comrade, the dog. We had a 40-minute walk out of the forest. So I come to this big opening, and my comrade, he's coming along with me. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking about everything that just occurred back there, uh, how impossible it was. And, I'm also have an excited feeling because then when I go home, what I intended to do was do a lot of research to understand how parallel timelines and portals work. This was obviously connected. So I was compiling what I was going to do and information on how I would find out about this portal or this dimensional rift, whatever it was. It was miraculous. And so I was kind of excited coming out and thinking about this. And we come to this clearing about halfway out towards my truck. And when I did, I was walking along thinking, and my whole body, I felt it, went cold right from the head right to the toe, inside and out. As I'm doing it now, my knees are getting cold, my legs. But so then I stop right in my tracks and I look around and I say, all right, what is this? I said, is this a ghost or something? Why am I feeling this? Am I feeling a ghost? My whole body went cold, but I'm very alert and good, so I know it's no sickness or anything, and I know that it's something is occurring. So at that moment when I'm stopped, feeling the intense cold, what I do is I began to connect the dots. My pick had vanished. My comrade Bud, the dog, as I just shared, had did something impossible. And then now here I am feeling this intense cold, which is, I have never felt that before, never experienced it. And I knew something was with it. Then, poof, the light bulb went on when I connected the other dot of what I had asked of God 20 minutes into my drive earlier that day. I had asked God to show me impossible things because I was his worst skeptic. So at that very moment when I put everything together, it was still overcast, very low overcast cloud cover, but just like a blanket, just not like different individual clouds. It was a full blanket. So right at that moment, when I put everything together, I looked up into the sky and I said, that was you, God, wasn't it? I said, you are real. And at that moment, when I looked up and said this, and then I turned sideways, the sun began to shine through the heavy blanket of cloud cover, and a beam come down from it, right on I, like if I was in the spotlight in the movie, and my comrade, the dog. The beam of yellow golden light come down. The sky cleared completely, and Father spoke to me from the sky, and my comrade the dog, he also was looking up when Father spoke. And when Father spoke, I just forget how he said it, but yeah, I think he said, yes, that was me that did this. So at that moment, also, my heart chakra, um, with this, when God first spoke to I, it all then activated the great, immense love and all of the pureness of what God is, and the bliss and the ecstasy overwhelmed me, that I dropped to my knees with tears just running out of my eyes. It's so happy that God is real. So the first thing, then I say, thank you for answering, God, something like that. The words may not be exact what I use now. So I said, thank you for answering, God. And then my first questions, I said, all right, why is all of this happening to I with the traumatic experience and all of this injustices? So I asked that question. And what he says, because you are my son. So then I said, your son. All right, this is interesting. So with that, at that time, I did not know, and I don't think I ever heard of the word Melchizedek at that time. And so I said, your son. So I said, does that mean I'm Jesus? And Father's words is that you are more than what Jesus was. That I am a high priest of the Melchizedek order. I did not even know what that was. And so with that, my expressions was, I said, I'm so glad that you are real, God, that you are real, Father, because I thought I was on this world all alone. And for me to be humbled before the reality of you was the most glorious thing. But also, that is the moment that I ascended, because what was occurring just before I spoke to God was the Holy Spirit with all of the cold connecting me back with Father, what had come in. So, very quickly with this, what I said then, Father, I said, all right, wow. So I am uh, uh, a, a Jesus, if you will, in the least, but much more than that. So with my conversation, I say, Father, then what do I do? Put on sandals and a white robe and go and tell the people you're real? And the Father smiles. I didn't see a visual, but because I'm with the energy, I feel when Father smiles. So he smiled and said, no, you're to be Rick in this now. And you have a very important mission here. And uh, divinely Archangel Michael of light, and we are going to begin to uh, assist you with your embodiment of your more of your divinity, your divine power, your knowledge, and all of this. So, and he said, we'll begin to do that. So, for a 6 month period, I went under being tutored by Father God and Archangel Michael of the light, being informed of everything on the planet about the evil and metaphysics, all inclusive, and also learning my abilities, because one of my abilities is a gatekeeper for the planet in constructing the new grid. So I needed to know how to use my powers, the techniques, the creator techniques, and all of this, and so much more. But so with this, then that was my ascension into my divinity, to further play out my role upon Earth at this time, during this ascension. So yes, um, this ascension is very real. God is absolutely real. God is mother and father, what I will say. So, my first part of my ascension was knowing Father God, the reality, uh, that it is true and real. And then Father introduced me to Mother and Mother Mary. And so I knew the reality of the divine mother and feminine as well. And about a year later, after that, after in constant communion with Father daily, if you will, and being guided and instructed with what He told me to do and what I needed to do, He said, I want you to go back to that location where we first spoke, you know, that day where my dog vanished, the pick vanished, and he said, I want you to go back there and just and have a walk or whatever. So I said, all right, I'd like to go back in there. And I was kind of thinking that maybe God had a full gold vein or something there, for I didn't know what it was about, and I didn't ask because I just absolutely trust fully God, because when you know God is real and when God is able to perform miracles like making your pick vanish, the dog vanish, and restoring his health, uh, when when something is able to do that, it's much more powerful than you, and you are humbled fully by it, and you most certainly obey what you are told. So I go back, and so I go back to the stream, to the same location. I'm kind of thinking maybe the portal's opened up, that um, that that we have another beautiful experience. I and my comrade, the dog, and by the way, he's walking much better then. Um, but I get to the stream, and Father says, walk up the stream on this side for, I don't know, Father said maybe a couple hundred yards. So I obeyed, and I walk up the stream, and this is a year later. I didn't know at the moment that it was exactly a year later until after I went out and checked, and it was. Because when you prospect, you keep a log of the dates and where you were at, so it was easy for me to check after the fact if it was indeed a year later, and it was. But Father told me at that time, he said, walk up the stream about 200 meters, I think, he said, and look in the woods, in the forest. So I walk up the stream and I look in the forest, and what is there on the forest floor is a silver colored helium balloon in a heart shape that says happy birthday on it. And so I look up and I knew it was Fry, and Father just Father is humorous as well, and kind and beautiful, and that was so special to a birthday present, from Father, even though it was a helium balloon that had come down. It was a party balloon, um, with happy birthday on it, but it was it was placed there divinely. For it was in thick tree cover, and when you try to logically explain it, no, you come to find out that another force at least had a play in it to put it there. But when Father told me to go to look there in that exact place to have a happy birthday balloon, and to find that it was the 1 year anniversary birthday of my ascension. So I needed to share that. Father had said earlier today to add that in. So that was my first ascension, if you will. In this, it was my first ascension in this incarnation. That was the first one, and I need to put it that way because I have already ascended. To get here, to be born in this body, I had to descend down, and I remained hidden from myself and others, my true identity, as I said, until I was about 47, 49 years old. Then I actually brought down my divinity and become one with the Father, and that important communication. So, what I need to say is, Father is very real. Everything I do say is truth. I am divine. I have this important mission upon earth, as well as with my other brothers and sisters and divine souls. And of course, Femke is my consort, if you will. She is absolutely divine and from the grace of God, Mother and Father as well. And so for there is no guessing what needs to be done on earth, and I and Femke and I are both doing it. And what we are doing is the biggest thing right now is by assisting others in their ascension and supporting them into their divine empowerment. At the same time, we have the divine vehicle, ascension vehicle of GPMS.world, which is the new world being created, which establishes the law of God on earth and all of the beautiful attributes of it. So it is being physically manifest and ratified now through GPMS.world, and it everyone can go there and add their ratification, their consent, their agreement to this new world. So it's happening, and it is very real, and it is the promise from God. It is the promise written through antiquity, through scripture, prophecies, beliefs. It's been there for this time, and it's really happening now. And we take this forward for all of the children of God. The actual darkness, the evil in the minions are not souls. They are not of God. so they do not go forward. But it doesn't matter. We don't uh, put time at fighting against them and trying to expose them. We actually just put our focus at collecting ones that are ready for the new world, and we create this new world. And by creating the new world, uh, by organically and by default, you don't need to put any finger on getting rid of the darkness, because the darkness organically cannot exist in a place of heaven and purity. Creational physics does not allow for darkness of any sort or negativity to exist in this new world. So we keep our focus on getting all energetically in alignment with this new world here on earth, which is the heaven on earth, and God's law is what, and natural universal law is what governs the reality in the least. So, nevertheless, that's been an hour, so that's great, and that's only, one part of the story. But it needed to be said about the ascension that God is real, the angels are real, and it's not someone just thinking it's your higher self. No, no. Your higher self cannot create. Uh, just being yourself cannot create these miracles and all of this. So, yes, Mother, Father, God is very real, and this is very important. So there is no doubting it. And we are children of God, if you will, and we are here to fulfill God's promise in this very important time, all of us. So there is no fear with God, there is love and trust and all of the good things. So trust in God is the absence of fear which propels each one of you forward, no matter what occurs yet in this world that may try to lower you. No, remain in absolute trust with your divinity and your connection yourself straight to Mother and Father God. And with this, we all get through this ascension period together much quicker. It takes the unity. Don't be involved in anything that separates you from the whole. It's important. It takes all of us, and the ascension has been designed this way, that it takes all of us. Yes, some have different roles to play and to give information to the others, like I'm an ascended master. I'm also a teacher, but I teach to assist, to raise my brothers and sisters all up shoulder to shoulder together with us all. So it's not it could, what I would say is ones would say, oh, it's a hierarchy. But yes, it is right now. But the truth is, up here, we are all the teachers and all the same, and there is no need for any more teachers, because everyone has it embodied, their divinity and knowing what they are. But yet, right here and now, all of the information is purveyed through the teachers for our brothers and sisters. And whatever you do, you can never get rid of a hierarchy, because the moment that you know that Mother and Father God are an actual entity, that are omnipotent, all powerful, that you are not more than that. You are a part of that, and you are a speck of light. But this is your direction, Mother and Father God, and that's where we're all going. And keep it as simple as each one of you can be, simple in your trust and in your love and in your kindness and in your peace. These are all the good things. Practice all of the good attributes, and at any time you you may have to have little battles, but always keep your truth there, knowing that that is your true power that eliminates the battles. So you have choices with everything you do, but it's always best to make the choices from the most purest, wisest state that has all of the good virtues and pure things like peace, freedom, uh, being kind and being honest and all of the good things. Keep that all as part of your operating. Embody all of that. And it assists. So, thank you so much, and namaste, and love, light, and gratitude. Kisses and winks and big love. And we got this. We're getting very, very close. We are very close. So keep in your faith, keep in your trust. God is real, Mother and Father, the angelics, the galactics, the benevolent galactics, all is very real. And we are in the most glorious, miraculous times ever as you emerge out of the humanness and into your divinity. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.